To truly comprehend the financial mystery of Ronald Read, we must first understand the ground he walked on. Born in the rugged, humble landscape of rural Vermont in 1921, Ronald came from an impoverished farming household. Wealth was not in his bloodline, hard labor was. He was a product of the Depression-era resilience, a man who understood the true value of a dollar not from a textbook, but from necessity. He was the first in his family to graduate high school, a significant achievement at the time. After honorably serving his country during the Second World War, the path he chose was defined by stability, not extravagance. It was a life of quiet diligence, a path far removed from the high-flying finance world, but one that contained a secret more valuable than any CEO's salary. For 34 years, Ronald anchored his life at a local gas station, working as a mechanic and attendant. It was honest work, but certainly not high-paying. Even after he retired from the gas station, he immediately took on a second career, a part-time janitor at a local J.C. Penney department store. This was his financial reality. For the better part of 7 decades, Ronald's income rarely climbed above what we would estimate today as a meager $1,000 a month. Let that number sink in. In modern America, that is the definition of struggling to get by, of being forced to live paycheck to paycheck. Most people with that income spend everything they earn just to cover basic living expenses, but Ronald was silently operating by a completely different rulebook. The irony is stunning. The perception of Ronald Read in his community was one of deep hardship. His frugal attire was the most obvious sign, the well-worn coat, the safety pin holding the fraying fabric together. He drove a modest, second-hand Toyota Yaris, a car chosen for its reliability and low cost, not its status. In fact, one anonymous stranger, seeing his appearance, felt so moved that they once paid for his breakfast, believing Ronald couldn't afford it. The town saw a poor man who needed help. What they failed to realize was that this very appearance, this active rejection of consumerism, was the single greatest weapon he possessed. This public perception of poverty was, in truth, the perfect camouflage for the immense financial power he was secretly cultivating. Everyone saw a poor janitor who was barely making ends meet. No one saw the disciplined investor who was quietly changing his own destiny. The wealth Ronald was accumulating wasn't visible in his hands or his clothes, it was locked away, quietly compounding, far from the judging eyes of the world. This hidden reality is the core of our story. This is the moment the simple life of a janitor starts to intersect with the raw, brutal, and often misunderstood power of Wall Street. This is the moment we start to peel back the layers of the $8 million secret and understand the powerful, yet accessible, financial blueprint he created for himself, a blueprint built entirely on patience and discipline. The financial system is built on one core assumption, that you will spend. We are constantly bombarded by the noise of consumption. From the moment we open our phones to the moment we look at our neighbor's driveway, society screams, upgrade. Buy the new model. You deserve this now. This is the financial trap that slowly but surely drains the bank accounts of the vast majority. Ronald Read, however, was uniquely immune to this pressure. His Spartan lifestyle was not a burden, it was a carefully chosen, fiercely maintained shield against the endless demands of consumer culture. His mantra was simple, every dollar he saved was a dollar he armed for battle. Every missed impulse purchase was a small victory in his personal war against wasteful spending, a commitment he never broke. His discipline extended into the minutiae of daily life. Ronald was known to walk whenever possible. When he did drive his used Yaris, his lawyer recounted that Ronald would actively avoid metered parking spaces, often choosing to park further away just to save a few coins. He wasn't focused on making one large saving, he was focused on eliminating thousands of small, unnecessary financial leaks over a period of 70 years. These small, consistent decisions were the key. His simple, predictable breakfast, a cheap cup of coffee and an English muffin, was not a sign of poverty, but a powerful symbol of his control. This ensured that a significant and reliable portion of his meager salary was always available for his true priority. But simply saving money in a bank account is not how you build $8 million. Saving is only the first half of the wealth equation. The second half is the action of putting that money to work. For Ronald, the moment he stepped away from the janitor's broom, he stepped into his true second career, that of a determined, private investor. He didn't seek out flashy advisors or get-rich-quick schemes. He sought knowledge relentlessly. He spent hours, every week, at the local library, poring over financial journals, balance sheets, and stock reports, silently educating himself on the fundamentals of investing. He wasn't a gambler, he was a meticulous researcher, quietly mastering the language of the market. This is the point where the janitor becomes the millionaire. Ronald understood that financial growth is less about high income and more about time in the market. He realized that the compound effect, where your earnings start generating their own earnings, was the key to escaping his low-wage trap. His strategy was simple, but brutally effective: invest the difference, and never sell. He bought shares in companies he understood, trusted, and knew would survive the test of time. In the next part, we will finally reveal exactly what he bought and the specific, simple portfolio that turned a janitor's salary into a multi-million-dollar fortune. Ronald Read's investment strategy was entirely contrary to the high-frequency trading and speculative gambling we see today. His philosophy was built on two unshakable pillars: simplicity and discipline. He understood that his small janitor's salary meant he could not afford to take big risks. He knew that the only way to overcome his low income was through time and consistency. He wasn't looking for the next Amazon or Google, he was looking for reliability. This led him to a strategy that is so simple, most people completely ignore it: buy quality, and never sell. He wasn't trying to beat the market, he was simply joining it, and staying there for the long haul. This commitment to patient, boring investing is where he separated himself from 99% of the population. So, what exactly did this janitor buy? He didn't mess around with complicated products or tech stocks he didn't understand. Ronald focused on blue-chip dividend-paying stocks. These are the financial giants that have been around for decades: companies like Procter & Gamble, Johnson & Johnson, J.P. Morgan Chase, and General Electric. Why these companies? Because they are stable, they survive economic crises, and most importantly, they pay dividends, a small portion of their profits paid directly to shareholders, often quarterly. The dividends were the true secret sauce. Ronald didn't spend these dividend payments, he immediately reinvested them to buy more shares of the same companies. This is known as dividend reinvestment, and it is the financial equivalent of planting seeds that grow into more seed-producing plants. His salary, as meager as it was, provided the initial fuel. But the dividends themselves became the second engine, relentlessly compounding his wealth year after year, completely independent of his $1,000 monthly paycheck. This leads us to the most powerful, yet least intuitive, lesson of Ronald Read's life: the power of time. Most people think of wealth growth as linear: you put in $1, you get $2 back. But compounding is exponential. For the first 20 years of his investing life, his portfolio grew slowly, almost boringly. But as the decades wore on, the growth accelerated wildly. His initial investments were generating small returns, but the returns on his returns, that's where the millions came from. By the time he was in his 80s, the returns he was earning in a single year were likely greater than his janitor's salary for an entire decade. He possessed the rarest trait of all investors: patience. Ronald lived through every major economic crisis, every stock market crash, every bubble, from the dot-com boom to the financial crisis. While nervous investors were selling their portfolios in panic, Ronald held on to his shares. He understood that volatility is just the price of admission to the stock market. His goal wasn't to capture short-term gains, his goal was to capture all of the long-term growth the American economy had to offer over a 70-year period. This unwavering, buy-and-hold strategy is the reason why a janitor succeeded where highly paid fund managers often fail. This silent process, the consistent saving, the patient reinvesting of dividends, the unwavering commitment to blue-chip stocks, continued for over 70 years. All of this financial genius was locked away in a safe deposit box, in the form of original stock certificates. His neighbors saw an old man driving a cheap car, the market saw a financial titan who had perfectly harnessed the power of time. The secret wasn't a complex formula, it was radical consistency. And it remained a secret until June 2, 2014, when the unassuming janitor passed away at the age of 92. This silent process, the consistent saving, the patient reinvesting of dividends, the unwavering commitment to blue-chip stocks, continued for over 70 years. All of this financial genius was locked away in a safe deposit box, in the form of original stock certificates. His neighbors saw an old man driving a cheap car, the market saw a financial titan who had perfectly harnessed the power of time. The secret wasn't a complex formula, it was radical consistency. And it remained a secret until June 2, 2014, when the unassuming janitor passed away at the age of 92. After 7 decades of relentless discipline, of quiet study in the library, and of faithfully driving the same old car, Ronald Reed's remarkable life came to an end in June 2014 at the age of 92. The community grieved the loss of a kind, humble, and simple man. But the true story of Ronald's life had yet to be told. The moment of truth arrived when his attorney, Lori Rowell, opened his will. She expected to see assets covering a modest home, a used car, and maybe a small savings account, enough to cover funeral costs. What she found, locked away in safe deposit boxes in the form of stacks of old stock certificates, was a staggering financial record that immediately rewrote his entire biography. The assets were totaled, and the number was incomprehensible, nearly $8 million in wealth. The small town of Brattleboro, Vermont, and the entire financial world were instantly thrown into shock. The headlines screamed the unbelievable truth: janitor leaves $8 million fortune. No one, not his family, not his friends, and certainly not his neighbors, had the slightest idea. This man, who was perceived as being close to poverty, was, on paper, wealthier than most successful executives and doctors in the country. His stepson, Philip Brown, articulated the sheer disbelief felt by everyone: "I don't think anybody had an idea that he was a multimillionaire." The man who meticulously saved a few dollars on parking and used safety pins for his clothes had quietly amassed a fortune large enough to change countless lives. The revelation forced everyone to re-examine their assumptions about wealth. It shattered the myth that you need a huge salary, a fancy title, or a college degree from an elite institution to achieve financial greatness. But the story was not just about the money, it was about the generosity of his character. True to the discipline and simple dignity he maintained throughout his life, Ronald didn't hoard his fortune. He bequeathed a total of $6 million to the very community that had supported him. A massive $4.8 million went to the Brattleboro Memorial Hospital, where he was a frequent visitor, not for treatment, but for his simple English muffin breakfast. Another $1.2 million went to the local Brooks Memorial Library, the very place where he spent countless hours educating himself on the fundamentals of the stock market. The impact of this one janitor's disciplined saving and investing was instantly transformative. The money allowed the hospital to fund major renovations, and the library to expand its services. It was the ultimate, anonymous gift, a reward to the community that had quietly provided the backdrop for his long, successful life. Ronald Reed proved that wealth is not about what you spend, it's about what you give. His final act solidified his place not just as a financial legend, but as a genuine philanthropist whose wealth touched the lives of thousands. The story of Ronald Reed's final curtain call delivers the hardest punch. It tells us that the greatest fortunes are built in secret, without fanfare, and over vast stretches of time. It reveals that the man with the $1,000 salary won the wealth game, while those who focused on short-term gains and luxury consumption inevitably lost. We've seen the struggle, the strategy, and the astonishing outcome. But now, it's time to move to the final, most crucial question: what are the exact, actionable lessons we can take from Ronald's 92-year blueprint, and how can you apply them, starting today? We've seen the astonishing result. But how do we bottle Ronald Reed's magic and use it in our own lives? His blueprint boils down to 5 powerful, actionable lessons. Lesson 1: Net worth is greater than salary. Ronald's $1,000 monthly income was irrelevant. What mattered was his net worth, the total value of all his assets minus his liabilities. Society praises high earners, but true wealth is measured by what you keep, not what you spend. Stop comparing your salary to others, start obsessing over your savings rate and your net worth. It is not about the size of the shovel, it's about how much dirt you move into the garden of your assets. Remember, a high income only helps if you don't raise your lifestyle to meet it. Lesson 2, Frugality is your financial superpower. For Ronald, simplicity wasn't a punishment, it was the mechanism that funded his fortune. Every dollar he didn't spend was a dollar he freed from the consumer machine. His discipline, the simple breakfasts, the old car, gave him a massive advantage. We call it living below your means. You need to ruthlessly identify and cut out the lifestyle creep, the subtle way your spending increases as your income does. Your biggest tool is not a complex trading strategy, it is mastering the art of saying no to immediate pleasure for long-term power. Embrace the janitor's mindset, wear your simplicity like armor. Lesson 3, Time is your ultimate asset. Ronald invested for over 70 years, proving that time is the single greatest variable in wealth building. Compounding is the engine, but time is the fuel. His fortune's growth was minimal in the first few decades, but became explosive in the last 20 years. This means you must start now, even with small amounts. Forget trying to perfectly time the market or pick the next hot stock. Ronald taught us, time in the market, staying invested consistently, is infinitely more valuable than timing the market, trying to buy low and sell high. Your greatest advantage over any hedge fund manager is your long life ahead. Lesson 4, Embrace the boring and the blue chip. Ronald's portfolio was reliable, not flashy. He only invested in companies he understood and trusted, the blue chip titans like P&G and Johnson & Johnson. They are the bedrock of the economy. His genius was in the dividend reinvestment plan, DRIP. Every time those companies paid him a dividend, he didn't pocket the cash, he immediately used it to buy more shares. This created a self-feeding loop that doubled the speed of his compounding. Stop chasing speculative hype and start building a portfolio of high-quality, dividend-paying companies that will literally pay you to own them. Lesson 5, Master the emotional game. Ronald Read lived through the Great Depression, the Black Monday crash, and the 2008 financial crisis. Did he panic? No. While others sold their shares at a loss, he held firm. He possessed the two rarest virtues in investing, patience and fortitude. He knew that market crashes are temporary sales, not permanent losses. Your biggest enemy is not inflation or a market slump, it is your own impulse to sell when things look bad. You must disconnect your emotions from your portfolio. Stick to your plan, buy consistently, and let the market panic happen around you. This emotional resilience is what separates the long-term millionaire from the short-term speculator. Ronald Read's life is the ultimate proof that financial destiny is a matter of choice, not circumstance. He took a $1,000 salary and, through radical discipline, built a fortune that changed lives forever. The tools are available to everyone, the knowledge is in the library, and the power is in the patience. You don't need a high-risk gamble, you need a high-conviction plan. The opportunity is there. The question now is whether you have the discipline of a janitor to execute it. If Ronald Read's story inspired you to rethink your finances, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into financial history. We want to know, what is the most powerful lesson you learned today? Let us know in the comments below. And remember, start saving, start learning, and start compounding. We'll see you in the next video. We've dissected the 5 core lessons from Ronald Read's life. But to truly appreciate his genius, we must return to the numbers. His entire life proves that the most powerful force in finance is not a high salary or a complicated algorithm, it is radical consistency. Let's consider the raw math. If Ronald, starting in the 1940s, only invested $60 a month, an amount that was challenging but feasible even on his janitor's salary, and consistently reinvested his dividends, he could have easily achieved his $8 million target. The simple consistency of that action, repeated over 70 years, is the only variable that mattered. Ronald's success is a direct consequence of his patience during market turmoil. His 70-year investment journey included some of the most volatile periods in American history: the high inflation of the 1970s, the Black Monday crash of 1987, the dot-com bubble burst, and the devastating 2008 financial crisis. Most investors panic sold during these events, permanently locking in their losses. But Ronald, the janitor, did the opposite. He either held his positions or, even better, he used his meager income to buy more shares at sale prices. He didn't see disaster, he saw opportunity. This leads to a profound realization: Ronald Read outperformed most financial experts who had advanced degrees and complex trading models. Why? Because the experts focused on short-term gains and often overcomplicated their strategies, subjecting them to higher fees and emotional stress. Ronald focused on the long-term fundamentals: low costs, tax efficiency, and dividend reinvestment. His dumb money strategy, executed with ironclad discipline, systematically beat the smart money. His life is a humbling reminder that in investing, character and behavior outweigh intelligence and market knowledge. Let's deep dive back into his biggest engine, dividend reinvestment. Imagine he owned 100 shares of a company paying a $1 dividend per share. He gets $100. Instead of spending that $100, he immediately buys one more share. Now he owns 101 shares, and the next dividend payment is even higher. This small, continuous action is the compound effect in motion. This meant that by the end of his life, his portfolio was funding itself. His final year's returns were generating more money than his entire lifetime of wages combined. This is the financial freedom that passive income can provide. We must also re-examine the purpose of his wealth. Ronald Read wasn't chasing luxury. His wealth was not an end goal, it was a tool for his final act of generosity. He achieved financial mastery only to give it all back to the community that sustained him. This adds a critical layer of spiritual wealth to his story. His discipline was about creating a legacy, not a luxury apartment. His ultimate reward was not wearing an expensive watch, but funding life-saving medical care and education for thousands of people. So, what can you do right now? The first step is to automate the janitor's discipline. First, automate your savings. Set up an automatic transfer from your paycheck to an investment account before you have a chance to spend it. Second, define enough. Ronald defined his need simply. You must define what level of spending truly makes you happy, and ruthlessly cut everything above that line. That difference is your investment fuel. Third, pick 5 blue-chip stocks or index funds. You don't need a portfolio of 50. Keep it simple. Invest in the big, durable companies. Fourth, promise yourself 20 years of silence. Lock the investment away and resist the urge to check it during market crashes. Ronald held his stocks through the Great Depression. Can you handle a 6-month correction? Your ability to remain emotionally detached is the single greatest determinant of your financial success. The story of Ronald Read is the ultimate rebuke to the world of quick riches. It's a message delivered from beyond the grave by a humble man who cleaned floors, drove an old car, and quietly beat the entire financial system. You don't need a high salary, a trust fund, or inside information. All you need is time, discipline, and the iron will of a janitor to live below your means and relentlessly compound your capital. Your $8 million fortune is built one small, consistent investment at a time. So, let the story of Ronald Read be your final anchor. He achieved financial freedom not by luck or inheritance, but by consciously choosing a life of radical simplicity. His true reward was not the $8 million figure itself, but the ability to decide what that money would ultimately achieve, a legacy of incredible generosity. He was the wealthiest man in the room, and nobody knew it. He didn't spend his money trying to convince the world he was rich, he spent his time building a fortune that quietly proved it. We hope this deep dive into Ronald Read's 92 years of life has fundamentally changed how you view your own wallet. If the janitor can build $8 million on $1,000 a month, what is truly stopping you? The answers are in the discipline and the time you dedicate starting now. Remember to like this video, subscribe for more deep financial history, and most importantly, tell us in the comments, what is the first frugal habit you are going to adopt starting tomorrow? We value your commitment to this journey. Thank you for watching. Music swells and fades out slowly.